Okay, for the second time, welcome everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Breslov Book Club of Thornhill, featuring the book by Rabbi Yaakov Klein, The Story of Our Lives, which is, of course, about the unbelievable story from Rabbi Nachman, the Lost Princess. Very, very happy to see everybody back and new people. And let's get right into it. Before we get into it, let's what do we got to say, Shmuley?
So if anybody would like to share any comments or questions, please email bookclub@breslovthornhill.com. I'll even try to check them during this year. You can type stuff in the chat as well, and of course we'll have questions at the end. And please follow us on YouTube. Breslov Thornhill is our YouTube channel. All of the shiurim get posted there, as well as other shiurim given by Rav Gisselson. And check out Yaakov Klein's website, lpitorah.org, for tons of amazing content on The Lost Princess and many other things. He's got a lot of amazing projects going on.
Special mazel tov to Vered on the award that Vered Lerner, on the award that you got this week. Mazel tov. Okay, let's get into it. We're in chapter 6, titled "The Pleasant Facade of Evil." So let's read the passage, and then we'll get into the ideas here. Afterwards, he saw a castle. And many soldiers were standing around it. And the castle was very beautiful and neat, and the troops were ordered very well around the castle. And the Viceroy was afraid because of the soldiers. Maybe they won't let him enter. So he was miyashev. He was miyashev himself. He settled himself. Eilech va'anaseh. Eilech va'anaseh. I'm going to go and I'm going to try. Vehishir hasus v'halach lahamivtzar. And he left his horse behind and walked to the castle. And they let him go in. They didn't stop him whatsoever. He walked from room to room without anyone stopping him. Until he got into one big hall, and he saw there that the king was sitting with his crown. And there were many soldiers around him there, and musicians with their instruments there. And over there, it was very pleasant and beautiful. The king or anyone else there did not ask him anything. He saw there tremendous delicacies and delicious foods. And he stood up and ate. And then he went and lied down in the corner to see what would happen there. That is the passage for this week's session. So let's get into this. There's a lot of awesome stuff here, and let's hope we can bring it all out. Okay, so first of all, he comes out of the path to the side, right? He was in this situation where he was in the desert. And in that desert, remember that place that was void of anything? After getting through desert, field, and forest, he got back to desert. From that place, he saw his path. He saw his path of hispoidedus. He saw his path of his chelik in Torah. He saw the path, not the path that everyone's been on, that everyone has to travel, not the 8-lane highway. He saw something and decided that I'm going to try this path. And Rabbi Nachman says that path is hispoidedus, or the mashpiyim say it's hispoidedus. Maybe it's our own personal connection to Torah, the thing that pulls us into Torah more than anything else. Maybe it's, all of Rabbi Nachman's teachings themselves are a path to the side. When we find that maybe all of Chassidus is a path to the side, right? But nonetheless, the Viceroy took this path, and he finds himself in a place where he sees this big, beautiful palace. So the palace, which is surrounded by soldiers, is the palace of the no good. It is the palace which is the malchus of the Sitra Achra. It's the palace of the kingdom of evil. Right? So, what do we expect? If you're going to draw a picture of the palace of the kingdom of evil, what's it going to look like? Right? It's going to be like some kind of, from the Addams Family or something, some kind of big house with it's breaking down and the wood's falling apart, and there's like a wolf howling in the background, right? And there's bats flying around or whatever. This is what the palace of the kingdom of evil is going to look like, right? Rabbi Nachman says, no, that's not what this palace looks like. This palace is beautiful, and it's orderly, and there's soldiers guarding it, and they're strong, but everything is in order, everything is beauty. He goes inside, and there's delicacies, there's beauty. It's pleasant and beautiful inside this palace. So what's going on? How do we understand this? So there's two main messages to say over here. The first one, which maybe we'll come back to a bit, is that in our journey towards the princess, right, the things that pull us away from that journey are not necessarily things that look evil. Sometimes the things that pull us away from that are things that we think are fantastic. And sometimes those things are like, oh, you know what? You gotta focus on making a ton of money, and you're gonna do good things with that money. But at the same time, you know what? You gotta get the BMW, and you gotta get this kind of fancy car. And now that you're working for it, you're gonna have to move into a nicer house. And all this stuff can pull us in, and we can get to think that the delicacies of this world, the pleasures of this world, are the ikr. We can lose our way on the path, right? This is one simple way of looking at it. The Yetzer Hara in this realm is not going to be a giant walking cheeseburger that's trying to ask us to eat it, right? It's going to be something that looks desirable, looks good, and looks orderly, and looks like something that we want. It's the first aspect. And sort of coming off of that and aligning with that is this amazing idea. Now, Rabbi Klein explains this so well in the book. I'm going to say some of the things that he says. We'll read some of the things that he says. But he says like this: some of the most powerful evil that has ever existed doesn't look like we would think. It's not like Genghis Khan, some kind of crazy savage who's riding, a horse and is dirty and disgusting and some of the greatest evil has been very prim and proper. So he says over here, like David HaMelech says, "Behold, such are the wicked. They are always at ease, and they increase their riches." This is what evil looks like. At ease, and wealthy. Exceedingly moral and polite, their lives are tidy and orderly. No one would ever suspect what motive stirs beneath the surface. He says from the Vilna Gaon, a quote from the Vilna Gaon, "The majority of heretics are those who sin in the realm of between man and God, appear to be good-natured." Nice, normal people. This is one of the strategies of the Yetzer Hara, to spread a snare before those who may be led astray and drawn after them. I don't want to bring up any specific examples, but sometimes we see that there are people who are famous. There's such a thing happening right now. People who are famous and appear to be very good people and appear to do good things in the world. And they appear nice, friendly, proper. People like them. And then something is revealed and you see that, oh my gosh, this person was so evil and did such harm to people and hurt people so badly, brought so much evil into the world. Right? Can you imagine such a thing? I was talking to someone today. I wasn't planning to bring this up, but it's one of these things. I was talking to someone today, and they told me that when they were a little kid, they experienced this is his word, not mine, some minor sexual abuse. And it wasn't so terrible in his words. And so this person said, but I'm older now, and it still bothers me, and I wanted to have healing from it. So I found this person on the internet who's a healer. And this person is kind of a well-known healer. And I looked into them, and they have good reviews and everything. And he says, so I went, for the first session with this healer, and I sat down there, and I was like, he said I need to have an open mind, whatever. And the person said, and he started to sexually assault me right there in the first session. He literally climbed on top of me and started to do all these things. Now, this person, if you would look, obviously doesn't advertise this for his healing services, and appears to be a healer, appears to be someone who provides a healing, like a he's helping. He cares about people. And this is a very close friend of mine who this happened to, experienced. It's people that we wouldn't expect sometimes, is what he's saying. Going along the same lines, everybody knows this, that they say about the Nazis. Who is more sick and demented and evil than Hitler and the Nazis? Right? And, one of the things he brings up here is so fantastic, but I'll never forget I heard way back, I think from Asia Torah, maybe in a discovery seminar, they said about the Nazis that right at the time when they were perpetrating, right before they perpetrated all this, right before the Second World War, they were enacting some of the most high-level new laws against cruelty to animals. The Nazis. And these are the people that ended up being the most disgusting animals that ever existed. The most evil people that were ever out there. Yaakov brings up this unbelievable story.
I think the point that I remember this story, and there was about the animal rights. They were very pro animal rights, and there was a certain gadol. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah.
Who it was? He heard about this about the animal rights, and he said, if this is what they're doing now, they're going to commit terrible atrocities against other people, against humans, because they're and you see this, it's the amount of, it's when evil is done in the name of good.
Right.
How much evil can be done in the name of good. Yeah. This comes out in different ways. In the name of science, right? People are doing all kinds of things these days in the name of quote unquote science and other things. But
it's crazy. So here he brings another Nazi story.
Yeah.
Where he's talking about firing squads that the Nazis had, and how, the Nazis had a reputation of being proper, polite, on time, organized, just like Rabbi Nachman is talking about the soldiers over here. And so Rabbi Yaakov brings that before the firing squad would rain their bullets down onto a bunch of innocent people, they would say, "Steh auf, bitte." Stand up, please. Stand up, please. They would say, please. Like somehow these demented people had this outer appearance of politeness, of saying please before you mow down innocent people. Chas v'shalom, right? It's like he says it in an amazing way here. This is the beautiful and orderly palace of evil that Rabbi Nachman describes. A rollicking volley of murderous gunfire framed by the poisonous sweetness of classic German etiquette. Steh auf, bitte. Stand up, please. Wow, what a beautiful sentence, huh? Rabbi Yaakov Klein is a tremendous writer. So, this is what the palace looks like, right? Looks can be deceiving. We're not always looking for the gangster down in the worst alley in downtown, in the core of the city, right? With the tattoos and everything. Sometimes it's that, right? But sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes this is what evil looks like.
So can I just change the gear for a minute?
Sure.
So we're talking about this, the Malchus de Sitra Achra, the kingdom and the kingship and the king, the no good king, the no good one, versus the Malchus, the Kedusha, the holy kingdom of Hashem. And we've been talking about it, some very bad and evil people, but the story of our lives, we know, is the story of our lives and how we relate to it. So something I was struggling with a little bit with this chapter, and I was talking to Rav Giselson about this before, is we need to, if we try to think of this story just in a linear fashion the whole time, the pieces don't always work, because we know that the Viceroy and the princess, they're really different parts within us, and the Malchus de Kedusha and the Malchus de Sitra Achra are things that are accessible to us. It doesn't mean, necessarily we're in physically different places. These are struggles that happen inside us. So I was trying to figure out, why is it that when the Viceroy, he goes to the deserts and the fields and the forests, and then he finds himself back on the desert, and then he finds this Eitzah, this answer, which is the beginning of the next stage of the story, of finding his path to the side. And whether that's his boidedus, or whether it's finding the things that we're passionate about in Yiddishkeit, he starts going that path, and we're like, okay, great, the path to the side. This is where we want to be. We're on the derech now that we need to be on. Where does it take us? To the palace of the no good one. That doesn't feel like a victory, right? But so I was trying to figure out, like, why didn't this take us somewhere really good and really awesome? So I think what comes out is that it takes us to where we need to be at that time, because this is where the princess is to be found, and if we're going to redeem her, it has to start here. But as far as the pleasant facade of evil is concerned, when we talk about his boidedus, and Rav Giselson speaks about this a lot, it's about going inside of ourselves and seeing where is our princess at? Where are we going to find her right now? So I think, most of us here, I don't think any of us here ever woke up one day and said, let's be evil from now on. let's be evil and go do bad things. Let me do some really bad things today. Right? It's not like that. We fall into these traps of that look orderly and nice and beautiful and appealing, and we end up there, and it's hard to even realize that it's we look around ourselves and we're like, I'm not such a terrible person, right?
100%.
I'm not murdering anybody. I'm not stealing. I'm not lashing out at people. Hopefully not. So but at the same time, our princess is stuck in this illusionary world of everything's nice and okay and whatever, but we're missing the whole point of our lives.
Right. Okay, that's good. That's awesome stuff. There's Ramusha Weinberger speaks about this in a very good way. We can kind of use that as a transition to the next section. We may come back a little bit. We've got to speak about Amalek a bit, but we can transition a little bit here into the section that says "Don't be afraid" on page 124, if anybody's following along. So we come to this castle, right? And there's two words that I think are going to be the words that we take with us from this chapter, at least from our group here today, that encompasses everything, right? And the two words we'll come to in a second. But the Viceroy looks up and sees this castle, and it's huge. It's a fortress. It's surrounded by guards, and they have weapons, right? And he looks at it, and what does he think? I'm not going to be able to get in. How could I possibly penetrate this castle that's surrounded by guards? It's not going to happen, right? But the story says he was meyashev himself again. He was meyashev himself. He developed his yishuv hadas. He did his own little hisbodedus there. He did what Breslov yishuv hadas means, which is he calmed himself. He gathered his Emunah. He remembered that Hashem was there with him. And on top of that, he was mechazek himself. This is what Yishuv Hadas is to a Breslover. Total Emunah, total calmness, and chizuk. Ready to go ahead. And what did he say? These two words? Eilech va'anaseh. I'm going to go and I'm going to try. With confidence. Right? Yeah, I don't have the answers. I'm not sure what's going to be. I'm going to try. I'm going to do what I can. But I don't have all the answers. I'm going to go and I'm going to try. Right? So on this, Rabbi Weinberger explains it like this. That one of the things that Rabbi Nachman talks about that is the biggest mania, the biggest blockage that we have, and where this all comes from, is what's called koyach hamedame, which means the power of imagination. Koyach hamedame, the power of imagination. And what do? We build up for ourselves castles and armed guards. We build up entire fortresses, skyscrapers, with all kinds of security systems, and we tell ourselves that we can't make it through. We cannot get in here. We can't do it. Right? And it's all an illusion. It's all false. If we gather the strength and the Emunah and the Yeshiva Das and the Chizuk to just go ahead with Emunah and say, Eilich va'anaseh, I'm going to go and I'm going to try. If Hashem wants me to be successful, I'll be successful. When we do that, we start to see, wait a second, the guards aren't doing anything. This is not what I expected. No one's asking me questions. I'm doing it. Right? So what he's trying to say is that we latch onto these things, like Shmuel is saying, that we think are either totally necessary for us, that we can't live without, or these things that we put up that strike fear into our hearts that we think we can't break through. Right? Let me give just a couple of small examples. Imagine somebody who is becoming a Baal Tshuva, or someone who went off the derech and is becoming a Baal Tshuva stage 2, whatever you want to call it. Right? And they're approaching the inyan of keeping Shabbos. Right? So it's very hard. If there's anyone who has kept Shabbos their whole lives, they have their own strong difficulties and challenges. But if you've never been someone who doesn't keep Shabbos, you might not understand the difficulty of breaking through to keep Shabbos. How hard it is to let go of certain things. Right? How can I possibly turn my phone off completely? Right? I'll never forget when I first started keeping Shabbos, one of the things my mother was so upset about, she's like, well, what if I need to call you? What if something happens? What if I'm in the hospital? What, all these what ifs. And what if to turn that phone off, to say, I'm sorry, I'm for the next little while, I'm just not going to be available. It's very, very difficult. And we might think, how can I move on without this? How can I do it? In another one, something that Weinberger said is someone might think, talking about Shabbos, someone who's been keeping Shabbos for a long time, and they're thinking about, you know what? We have in our shul here, we have a Likutei Moran Chabura, every Shabbos an hour before Mincha. And right now, because of the time of year, that Chabura starts at 2:55. Right? There's not time in the afternoon. And it's very hard to not have any nap or anything and to come straight to a Likutei Moran Chabura, right? Very difficult. So a person might think, I cannot get by without my nap on Shabbos. I have to have an hour-long nap. And if I don't, I can't. I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't do it. To let go of that thing, it's scary. And it's terrifying. And it's hard. These things that we hold on to, they're all in our mind. What's going to happen to the guy who lets go of that nap and goes to learn? Okay, maybe he'll be tired, but after that, he'll feel such a sense of accomplishment, such a sense of Shabbos, such a sense of that I did something positive, self-esteem, positivity, chevrakait, being together with people, doing something good. So many positive feelings will come out from that. But to let go of that nap is very hard. There's many, many more examples that we could bring along this realm. But sometimes letting go of those things is part of what we've created in our mind. And Pashut doesn't exist. It does not exist. The fears that people have about trying to do something new, trying to move forward in my journey to find the princess. Once again, there's so many different examples, but one of the things that really holds us back, one of the things that I like to think of as soldiers, can be the people that we're connected to. So I gave an example of my mother. I'm not, Chas v'shalom, saying she's one of the evil soldiers. God forbid. Right? But there's people that will stand up in our journey against us. And for me, once again, I'll tell you another personal aspect. I'll never forget that when I started to become frum, way back when, long time ago, my hair was totally dark, all black, not a single white hair. And I'll never forget that I got a lot of support from different people, but the main people that stood up against me were my non-religious Jewish friends. They couldn't take it. They could not. They were not on board whatsoever, right? And they stood up against me, and they thought I was crazy, and I was a little crazy, but Baruch Hashem, it's a good kind of crazy. It's if you know the Rabbi Nachman stories, it's the tainted wheat kind of crazy. But and so these are the soldiers that we come up against. But if we stop and we step back and we're meyashiv ourselves and we get ourselves with Emunah, we get ourselves with chizuk, and we say, I know what path I need to be on, and I know I'm facing difficulties, but eilech va'anaseh, I'm going to go and I'm going to try. Years later, after all this, those people literally apologized to me and provided their support. I performed weddings for these people. They mamish, it became a whole different thing. But there was something, there was the koyach hadimyan, koyach medame, the power of imagination is there to stop us, right? So we see this aspect of someone standing up, a little person standing up to a big palace, right? We see this all over the history of Bnei Israel, all over the Torah, all over Tanakh. You know, one of the great examples is the Miragum, the spies, right? Such an awesome example. Because what happened? The spies. So everybody knows that they were coming into Eretz Yisrael, and the leaders of the tribes said, Moshe Rabbeinu, we need to send in Miraglim spies to go and spy out the land, to figure out how we're going to conquer the land. And of course, the spies went in with a tumah in their heart, and they brought back a bad report that was not proper, right? But what happened is they came back and they said, we can't do it. We cannot go in. You know what there is there? Literally, there's huge fortresses. And there's powerful giants. And the fruit, look at the size of the fruit. If we go here, we are going to be destroyed. Right? And it took the tzaddikim of Kalev and Yeshua, two little guys against everybody, to say, no, you know what? This is not the truth. Eilech va'anaseh. We can go. We can do it. We have Hashem on our side. Right? This is all koyach hadimyan. This is all our imagination. Hashem split the sea for us. Hashem took us out of a huge nation of slavery. He 10 makas. He destroyed everybody. Hashem's got our back. If we're doing the right thing, Hashem will guide us and Hashem will help us to be successful. Eilech va'anaseh. I'm going to go and I'm going to try. Right? And so they did. I mean, well, they didn't really. But they were the ones who stood up. And we see what a terrible event it was that the people listened to the spies. Kalev and Yeshua had the right idea. Esther HaMalka. Esther HaMalka and Mordechai HaTzadik. We're going to talk about this more as we go through this. But Esther HaMalka is the princess. And Mordechai HaTzadik is the viceroy. He literally became the Mishneh LaMelech. He became the viceroy. Right? And Esther HaMalka finds herself...
He was Hashem's viceroy all along.
And the Melech is the Melech, his king, is Hashem. Right? It's really, really amazing to what extent the Purim story is exactly the Lost Princess. It's totally amazing, right? But Esther's in the palace. like the princess, we haven't found out yet, but next chapter we're going to see the princess is in the palace. Esther HaMalka is in the palace, right? And the Mordechai Tzaddik is outside the palace. And he stands outside. And you know what he does? He refuses to bow down no matter what. He doesn't give in for 1 second. He's the tzaddik. He is the one who does what he's the right thing to do. He's Eilech v'anaseh. I'm going to go and do it. This is happening. Hashem, if we do the right thing, if we do what Hashem wants us, Hashem's got our back. Hashem's going to make us be successful. And so he never has fear, Mordechai Tzaddik. And what does he tell to Esther HaMalka? Right? When he tells her, you've got to go and see the king. You got to make this happen. Right? And Esther says, well, I can't. I'm in the palace.
Just hesitating.
And
reservations.
Yeah, I'm in the palace. And you know what? In the palace, there's rules. And if I don't follow the rules of the palace, I'm going to get killed. And there's a danger. And there's guards. And there's the king. And there's protocol. And there's all these things, Esther says. And Mordechai says to her, listen, you know the famous thing that he says? He says, Revach v'hatzola yavoy leYehudim. The Jews are going to be saved. It's happening. Maybe the only reason you are here right now is so you can do your part. You can stand up, Esther, and you can do, you're put here, you can do your part, and you can be part of this solution. You can fulfill your purpose by being here right now and doing what you need to do. Or you can crumble from the fear of everything that's around you. Right? But, Mordechai Tzaddik is the Viceroy. He says, I'm miyashev myself. I have Emunah, I have confidence, I have chizuk. I'm going. I'm going to go, I'm going to try, and we'll see what Hashem wants. And of course, Esther does, and she saves everybody. Right? But this is the exact thing. We face these huge challenges, and so often they're in our head. All we got to do is go ahead. And go ahead with Emunah and with confidence, with chizuk, and it's gonna happen. Right? We like to talk about over here all the time, because I know a number of people who struggle with this, who, Baruch Hashem, some have had success. the overthinker. Right? I hear people right now are literally pointing to themselves as we were talking about this. The overthinker. Right? What does the overthinker do? They turn themselves into a person standing in front of a gigantic, impenetrable palace that's surrounded by guards. Right? And not only that, the overthinker imagines and puts all of those guards into place and builds the big steel door and puts all the weapons in the hands of those guards with all of the overthinking. Just imagining what could be, but if I do this, then this is going to happen. Then this is going to happen. And then what if that then what's going to be over here? And what's this person going to think? And what's good? And by doing that, what do we have? Paralysis by analysis. Person cannot move forward, cannot do what needs to be done, because a person has created a palace with tremendous guards and danger in front of them. And really, it's all koyach hamedame, eilech v'anaseh. Go ahead, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to try. I'm going to go and I'm going to try. That's it. So you might tell me, Rabbi, you're insane. You got a plan. And you got to think of things in advance. Okay, you do. But you know when it's a problem. A normal amount of proper consideration and then movement. We got to go. We got to move forward. We got to try. We got to do something. If I could tell you the amount of times that I've faced something difficult and I've just had to push myself through, the times when I pushed myself through, it's life went forward. But the times when I didn't push myself through, nothing happens.
Can we quite quote Michael Jordan here? I think it's his saying.
Maybe.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Nice.
You gotta just... Psh. You know what? Yaakov Klein takes great liberty and pride, I think, in bringing sources from wherever you can take them, and I think that's a
fantastic source.
Very on point message.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah. Something like that.
Right. I mean, there's so many things from the secular world that make sense over here. Like I was sitting in a meeting today with somebody whose business is really failing, and I was helping to encourage them, and sitting with their accountant, and their accountant said to them, like, there's still a part of the business that can keep going, and it looks like there's a plan to make it go, but this person is broken because everything he's been working on, everything he's been trying to do is falling apart, right? So the accountant said to him, like, I don't know, what world you come from, but every single person that I know who's made it big in a business has failed multiple times. But they don't consider it a failure afterwards. Because each one of those times, they learn something new, and it adds something to their toolbox. It gives them more experience. It gives them the ability to not make that same mistake again. And it's like, we always say, there's no such thing as failure, just a learning experience. Right? So, but if we build that situation into an impenetrable wall with armed guards, and we're too afraid to go through, nothing's going to happen. This person, we counseled, gave him a path forward, just said, you got to leave that behind, and you got a great path ahead of you, right? But it's hard to see, and you have to be able to, it's why it always helps. We don't have it in the story here at the moment, but it's always important to have friends to support you, chaverim, to have eitzas from people who, from a rav, from a mashpia, from someone who just knows more than you. So important. Rabbi Nachman brings, I think it's in Torah 126, if I remember correctly. He brings the story. Rav Arush talks about this. He talked about it a few years ago. A few years ago, Rav Arush was very into this concept of emunas atzmacha, of having belief in yourself, faith in yourself. And he brought this thing from Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman talks about, you can have a big elephant, a huge elephant, right? And the elephant has, like, going through its trunk, a little ring tied to a tiny little rope that's attached to a mouse. And the mouse can pull it along, and whichever way the mouse pulls, the elephant is going to be led that way. The elephant's going to go along. Rabbi Nachman says, don't be the elephant. Don't be this person who gets led around by that little thing. I was thinking about this. It's a great mashal. But do you ever just think about a horse that's hooked up to a wagon, or a person sitting on a horse? The power of a horse? These animals are gigantic. They can pull huge things. They could get rid of this little tiny person on their back in 3 seconds, jump the fence, and go do whatever they want. Right? But a horse is a domestic animal Hashem gave us that we are able to use and have this relationship with. But that's for a horse. That's not for us. Right? We have to know that we have such tremendous power. Such tremendous power. We have a soul that's a burning, fiery piece of Hashem with tremendous power and potential and energy. And we cannot, chas v'shalom, think that there's something harnessing us that has to keep us harnessed. That has to keep us held down. Right? You're not an elephant, like Rabbi Nachman says. You're not a horse with a little piece of leather on you with a man on top. We can go, and that's the same thing. The elephant, the horse, is the same thing as this palace. Chas v'shalom, we should limit ourselves with fear. Rather, we're going to think, we're going to do his boydedus, we're going to take the path to the side, we're going to be miyashev ourselves, settle our minds, emunah, chizuk. I've thought it through, and now, elech v'anaseh. I'm going to go, and I'm going to try. And if it's the right thing, Hashem's going to make me successful. That's the story of the Viceroy here, right now.
So, I just wanted to mention, so this is the Viceroy's thought process when he's miyashev himself and he makes the right choice. In this case, though, it wasn't getting him to where he really needed to be. It was for now, because right now the princess is still in the castle of the no good one. But, as the story then tells us, this takes him to a bad place. This takes him to a very bad place. So I think it's just important to mention later on, towards the end of the story, the princess is going to be in a different kind of castle in the right place, where she ultimately does get redeemed from there, and they live happily ever after. We can only assume. But right now, it's not quite that. So what happens is the Viceroy is able to then walk right past the soldiers, as we mentioned, and can pretty much ransack the castle as he pleases. He goes into this room, he goes into that room. No one says a word to him. No one says a word to him, right? No one even acknowledges that he exists. And the reason for that, I think Yaakov Klein talks about it, but it's spoken about in other places as well, is that when a person does approach the realm of evil, they're allowed right in. There's not going to be too many things at this stage of the game. There's not going to be too many things that stop you. You get invited right in. It looks nice. It looks good. It looks beautiful. You can come right in, right? And yes, we know that they're all of these things and all of these pleasures and the soldiers and everything. It's all an illusion, and it's all falsehood and rooted in evil and everything like that. But I just think it's important to mention that when he ultimately gets to the right castle where he's going to free the princess, there's a lot of challenges, and they're not imaginary challenges. But the mindset of the Viceroy here is correct. Like, we got to just keep going. And you see, he has tremendous perseverance. Yeah. Right? Failure after failure after failure. Right? And even being told later on by the giants, right? You don't know what you're talking about. Go home. You're crazy. You know, right? And he just persisting, going forward. But I just wanted to point out that difference between the two different castles and the pathways that lead to both of them. I heard from my good friend in Houston, Rabbi Nagel. He mentioned that, I want to get a little Kabbalistic for a second. We know that our world is represented in the four-letter name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Our world is represented by the last Hey in the name of Hashem. That's Olam Haza, as far as we know it, right? And that letter Hey, how's a Hey made? It's a Dalid with a little piece. That represents Olam Haza. What does that mean? The bottom of it, there's nothing there. You can fall right down in Olam Haza into the Malchus, the Sitra Achra, and be surrounded and caught up in this castle. Right, the way out of it, there's only a little hole at the top of the hay to get to the next level. Right, there's a little hole, and you have to figure out how you would climb up and fit into this small place. Right. But the pathway to evil, it'll bring you right in. Won't try to stop you at all.
Right. The Gemara says, "Haba letame," someone who comes and wants to go on a path of tuma, Messiah loy. Yeah. He gets as much help as he needs. Right. You can go this way, and there's not going to be resistance. He says somewhere here, I don't remember where it is, Yaakov Klein brings that it takes a long time. It takes hard work to grow in levels of tshuva, and to reach a higher place. But to go the other way, it's instant and easy, right? And this is the realm. This is what this realm is. I'll to get to the next point. I'll argue a little bit with you, but not really.
Okay.
So Shmuley said that really, you see, he's going to this place, but it's the place he goes to is not even a good place. Like he goes through, he does his purpose, and he should get to the place, a good place, but he gets to a place, it's the Malchus Sitra Achra, right? So the way I understand it.
No, but he had to get there, though.
Right.
He had to get there. That's where he's finding the princess is held captive.
So the way I understand it, and you'll see what you think about this, is that this in this initial stage, right? This is the first time where he's taken that path. It's the first time that he started to go down a different path. He started to try something new. He started down the path of the Baal Shem Tov, the Rebbe Nachman, his Poitadus, whatever that path is, right? And what's the result of that path? Is it gets revealed to him that he's in the Malchus Sitra Achra. Not only that's where the princess is.
Right.
The princess is in the kingdom of evil. And I'm in the kingdom of evil. he starts to have this realization that things are not what I thought they were, and this kingdom of evil that I didn't even realize it. It's all of the opulence that's around me. It's all of the things that I used to think were goals that I should reach. I see now are just false. It's part of the kingdom of evil, right? He says this beautiful thing.
It's sixth sun stuff.
It's sixth sun stuff, exactly.
Yeah.
He says this amazing thing. Yaakov Klein says this amazing thing that you would think. So he comes in and he goes into the palace, and there's the king with all of his servants around, and everybody's all dressed fancy, right? And what does the Viceroy look like? The Viceroy has been on a journey of years and years and years through the desert and the field and the forest. The Viceroy in the story probably, his clothes are probably torn. He's probably a little dirty. He's probably been on the road for years and years and years. And he comes into this place, and evil looks impeccable and looks opulent. And he looks a little worn and a little humble, right? So, you can be... Sometimes I like to point out that there's a thing called a Lakewood car. This is kind of funny. A Lakewood car. What's a Lakewood car? It's either a gigantic old station wagon, right? Or a big Suburban, or a gigantic van that can hold a family of 35, can hold a family of 10, right?
We call that a Rebbe car.
A Rebbe car.
It's a Rebbe car.
Rebbe car, Lakewood car, whatever it is. And one of the headlights is missing. There's a big dent on the side, right? And the license plate is hanging off one way, right? And so I remember at one point, someone said to me, they're like, this is not nice. These are, religious people. They should be presenting themselves in a way that looks proper. Get rid of this car, get a new car. Make sure that it's shiny and everything. What are you driving around this old beater for, right? So this is years ago, and I said, you know what I think it is? I think it is that that's not in the realm of what's important to them. They don't care. I don't care if my car has a dent, right? I don't care if my car has a dent. I don't care if my car is older and it's not as clean as someone else's car. I'm going to learn Torah. I'm going to daven. I'm going to drive my kids around. I'm going to get groceries. I'm taking care of my family. I'm not thinking about how shiny my car is as I'm driving, right? So whether this is true or not, this is my own observation, right? But
I think you see there's a real hashkafic conversation there, because you have gedolim, you have big people who are really on two very extreme sides of that, right? You have those, the famous. I'm not going to mention names on either side, but you have gedolim who are really just like totally separated from the world, and they're living in a house that hasn't been renovated in 75 years, and the paint is peeling off the walls, and they're totally separated from the world, right? And then you have those who are very into the idea, and I don't for a second think it comes from their own personal desires, but there's a concept of kavod HaTorah, right? Of respect for, if you're a representative of Hashem in the world, a representative of Torah in the world, to a degree you should look put together, right? The Rishner, right? The Rishner was known to be very surrounded by luxury, malchusdik.
Right. There's a difference, though, right? Yeah. And that is that, and it's an important demarcation, right? Is that and it's usually, it seems to be more by the rebbes of the big Hasidic courts, generally speaking. I remember when I lived in Eretz Yisrael, whenever I would go to see the Gedolim, it seemed like I remember once I went to visit Rav David Soloveitchik in his house, and he was like one of the Soloveitchik dynasties, the great Rosh Hashivas, big Gadol Hador, and I remember going into his house and thinking, like, this is almost as bad as the dorm room that I stay in. But the bookshelves were like rusty metal shelves. They had a small house with just, a dining room, a kitchen, a simple, Mea Sharim type kitchen. This is all they had. and there was no question of being on the right path, being happy, being successful, right? So for him, that wasn't important. I think by these big, Hasidic courts where you have the Rebbe who's dressed in the most fancy clothing, and he has the cane, and everything is silver, and everything is fancy. It's an avodah of the whole Hasidus to ascribe malchus to the Rebbe, to ascribe malchus to say this is the kingdom of holiness in the world. It's not outside. It's not the Teslas, and it's not the BMWs, and it's not these people who are in the news all the time. This is what the kingdom should be, right? And Hasidim think of their Rebbes as their top leader, and the Melech. So it's done in a different way.
I think it's more than that, though. I think it's hashkafically. If you're of the camp that holds, and the end of this chapter starts to talk about that, and it's mentioned in one of the footnotes, if you're in the school of thought that holds that even physicality is not inherently bad, it can just be used for good or bad. If you hold that everything in physicality has sparks of godliness within it that just need to be released and come out, you hold that the physical world is not here to be abstained from, it's here to be elevated to kedusha, to use for the right things, right? So it's to say that Hashem, and I'm personally much more in that camp. If we believe that Hashem gave us this amazing, beautiful world, and it's got all of the beautiful scenery and amazing technology and amazing whatever it is, all kinds of beauty that can be seen in the world, and to use that beauty and abundance that Hashem puts in the world, to use that to reveal godliness, I think is, I'm saying I think there's more to it. And there's a school out there that believes, no, there's no, right? Like literally
I don't like this school.
Well, whatever. It's, one of what some people would say, some people say there's no argument, but what some people would say is one of the main disagreements between the more, the Litvish school of thought versus the Hasidish school of thought, right? Is that some say, the physical world is the physical world, and we need to just use it just as per what the mitzvahs say, but, other than that, abstain from it. Versus, no, we want to elevate everything. We want to use, Hashem gave us technology, let's use it for Zoom shiurim and websites with full of Torah and all that, versus, oh, no, this is Yetzer Hara, let's not,
Right.
We don't go there.
So I think one of the ways to see the difference, and I guess we'll finish up with this, is the Rabbi Klein brings over here, starting on page 128, fleeting honor, eternal disgrace. Right. So you're absolutely right.
You see, the princess
and you
is
can
ultimately in a place of gold and pearl and every, right? It's not.
But you can have a situation where someone is in a place of opulence, and they have all fancy stuff around them, right? So what he says over here is he brings this concept of, if this is the picture, I mean, I think this is what the story is saying. I just have to say, I don't agree completely with what Shmuel is saying. The story is trying to tell us that this is where he finds himself, and it's not the right place to be, right? And it's full of opulence and fanciness and all this stuff, and that's not what we're after. It seems to be what it's saying. So Rabbi Klein explains it like this. He says, not only that, if you find yourself in this place and you see that you have all this fancy stuff around you, and you're building up such a life where you have the fancy cars and the fancy house and this and that, and you're showing everybody else what you have, you look around and you see that you are in the kingdom of evil. Not only that you're the king. You've made yourself into the king. And therefore, in order to be Makayim, your role as the king, you gotta have as much fancy stuff as you can. You gotta show it off to everybody to show that I'm the king. This is the role that a person has created for themselves. He says over here, when a person lives his life in this manner, denying Hashem's sovereignty over every aspect of the physical realm, he comes to crown himself king over his life, crediting his accomplishments solely to his own efforts. Right? I'm the king. Doesn't mean that you can't be that other guy. I think is probably much harder. But when it's such a trap. It's such a huge trap to be involved in all this gashmias and all of the details of the beauty of every aspect of every corner of one's house, and everything has to be so this way and that way. It's such a hole that someone can be pulled into, right? That you start to think that it's me, and that it's a representation of me, and that I'm the king, and I'm showing everybody, and I'm, like he's saying over here. But he says, this worldview, which fails to recognize all of existence as being unified under the absolute rule of Hashem, is represented in our tale by the kingdom of evil, the no good one, which Rabbi Nachman refers to as the Malchus de Sitra Achra. A person who harbors this arrogant approach and sees himself as being in control of his life takes the form of the king whom the Viceroy encounters in the castle. So it's not about necessarily what you have or what you don't have, is what he's saying, but it's about how you relate to it and how you see your role connected to it, right? Is it arrogance? Is it self-aggrandizement? Is it self-accomplishment? Honor for me, right? Then you've created a kingdom of evil, and you're the king, right?
The only part I disagree with is the statement that you're disagreeing with me, because I think you're saying exactly what I said.
I still feel like if we had to say the story is leading us down either one of those paths, it's not that path.
What are the two paths?
It's that a person should lead a more humble life and shouldn't have big, gigantic, fancy everything.
Well, that's definitely not the goal of life. I don't think that's not what I was saying.
You know how we're saying there's these two schools?
Yeah.
I'm saying I think that I personally think that the aspect of being more humble and not having to have so much opulence around you is a healthier way to go.